Thank you all for attending our meeting tonight. I appreciate people keeping track of us and coming to our meeting. We did start at 5:30 tonight. We had several things that we did prior to this evening. We had some board development on just open meeting law. We had an attorney here speaking with us, and we had closed session for a little while. So we are now back in open session. The first thing that I would like to do is have approval of our minutes from our June 14th minutes, or our June 14th meeting. The minutes are in your packets.
So move.
Second.
Anybody have any concerns on those minutes? All in favor of accepting them, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I need approval of the agenda and any additions or changes?
As written.
So moved as written.
Second.
Jeff, Mark. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next, we have public comment. So I know that there are several people here that want to speak to us, and I appreciate all of you coming and always appreciate members of the public giving us their concerns. That helps us, educates us, and lets us hear what's going on out there. Just so that we can kind of keep time managed and attend to the meetings that we have in front of us. Judy is going to be our timekeeper. Oh, Brian is going to be our timekeeper tonight. Thank you, Brian. And you get 3 minutes to speak. You're going to give a 30-second.
Well, you want 15 or 30?
30 seconds?
Sure.
30 seconds.
raise
He'll
my
give
hand.
you a hand when you have 30 seconds left, just to give you an indicator, but we would like to keep your comments to 3 minutes. So first, I have, and please excuse me if I murder your name, some of it is the writing and some of it is just the pronunciation. Melissa Manor,
Yeah,
come forward, please. Thank
Melissa
you.
Manuar. I got a couple things that I want to talk about tonight. So I have a 5-year-old who had his first day of camp kindergarten today. And as a scientist, I fully believe in following science-based policies, and I'm incredibly disappointed in the Board of Education's decision to not require masks, particularly for kids that absolutely cannot get vaccinated because it's not available to them. So I absolutely think that the policy needs to change. Masks need to be required for kids that are under the age of 12. My son should have the opportunity to be vaccinated, just like I'm guessing all of you have had the opportunity at this point, and probably all of your kids. Why is my kid not just as important as your children are? And I get it. The likelihood of him having a serious adverse reaction to getting COVID is low. But why can't you still put in the basic mitigation measures that we know work, which are masks? And I have written to several of you, as you probably maybe recognize my name, saying that masks are absolutely what is the CDC is saying we need to be doing for those that are not vaccinated. Those that are vaccinated do not need to wear masks. Those that are unvaccinated, the CDC has been very clear. You need to wear masks. So by the district deciding that masks are not required, you are putting my child and all the other kids in his classroom that are both wearing masks and not wearing masks at risk. Because we know that the way that masks work is I wear a mask to protect you. You wear a mask to protect me. So all the kids in his class today, 6 of 16 were wearing a mask. So that means that 10 kids potentially could have had COVID today, and now my child has maybe caught COVID because all these people are choosing to not have their kid wear a mask. And with the Delta variant, we know it's incredibly contagious. So even if it's unlikely that out of all the kids in camp kindergarten today, if just one had COVID, an entire classroom may be getting exposed to COVID. So I ask, do you guys want to make policies based in science, or do you want to make policies based on convenience? And by telling me that the policy of continuing to clean surfaces and make sanitizer available is absolutely not based in science. It has been very clear, based on the science, that cleaning surfaces, washing hands, important, yes, for not spreading things like the flu. But it is not what is preventing the spread of COVID. We know this.
Thank you. Ready, Brian?
Yep.
Rebecca Road. Thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, my name's Rebecca Rohde. I have 3 kids in the school system, and we are all vaccinated with one exception. That's my 10-year-old. He has asthma, so when the option came for a totally virtual school last year, we had very mixed feelings. But his education with his ADHD, he was having a really hard time with virtual learning. So we thought everybody's going to have masks, you know, for kids his age. Everybody thinks the transmission is pretty low. We're just going to go for it. And luckily it worked out great. And it's been so exciting that all of us can go out and do the things we want to do and live our regular lives. Except for my one kiddo, he can't do all the things. He still has to wear a mask. We still have to, you know, have people tested if they're possibly going to come in the house, which we absolutely discourage. So I agree with what the previous speaker said. It seems maybe careless to go so far as to say, when the medical ad hoc committee said, well, we have mixed emotions about, you know, about the kids under 10 or under 12. And then the next thing from the notes and the minutes from that board meeting was that the board members had a lot of, you know, mixed feelings and had a lot to talk about when it came to this policy. And then the next thing we know, all of a sudden, oh, no masks are required, which is great for everybody who's vaccinated. For the people who aren't vaccinated, it's not okay. As the previous speaker said, it is the simplest little thing to have people wear masks. We've seen all the, you know, all the statistics, and we know that that is the easiest thing to do to prevent anything. I don't really want my kid who has asthma going into a classroom with kids that may or may not have COVID. Are we going to test, you know, daily or weekly in the schools? That might be a good solution. If there's some other measure in place, then I think it's reasonable to talk about the policy of masks. But just to say that masks are optional, so our kids don't have a chance to get protected unless they want to possibly get ridiculed at school, is not reasonable. And I think it's kind of irresponsible that we just sort of dropped the ball for our youngest. So I'd really like you to reconsider that, and I really think that kids in K through 6 should have masks mandatory for the health and safety of the whole community. Thanks.
Thank you. Next I have Megan Durst. Thank you, Megan.
Hi, I've got some notes, I hope that's okay. I'm Megan Durst, a mother of a rising 3rd and rising 5th grader in the district. I'm also a practicing pediatrician and internal medicine doctor, taking care of children and adults in Dane County and the surrounding areas. I'm here to share my thoughts on the board's recent decision to make masking optional for all Waunakee students. I started a petition of which almost 200 people have signed, urging the board to reconsider this decision and return to mandatory masking for students in K through 6 who are 11 and under and not yet eligible to be vaccinated. We know that the vast majority of positive COVID cases are in the unvaccinated population. We know that masking can help decrease transmission, particularly in the indoor setting. The CDC has just released new guidelines, new recommendations this past Friday, allowing for vaccinated teachers and students to no longer mask indoors in school and continuing to recommend unvaccinated people, including children, continue to mask in this setting. The public response to this has been mixed. Some feel it goes too far, others feel it doesn't go far enough. It certainly seems reasonable to me. In fact, I can even understand the decision to allow those who are age eligible, 12 and older, to choose whether or not to mask at school, particularly in a county like ours with low case and positivity rates. The Delta variant is sweeping through the country and causing surges in the unvaccinated population. The risk index for Dane County has recently, since your last meeting, gone from low to moderate with a 124% increase in positive COVID cases in the last 2 weeks. The Delta variant appears to be 50 to 100%, so doubly more contagious than the original COVID strain, with an up to 14-day incubation period of time for the virus to become positive in certain patients. It can take a while to see these spikes coming, and already we are seeing a significant increase in cases and spread in our community. One case in a classroom of unmasked, unvaccinated kids with a strain of virus that spreads 2 times as easily as the original strain we were dealing with last school year will lead to spread within the schools at worst and home quarantine for whole classes at best. I want my kids to stay in school when there are cases in their classes, like they were able to this past year. This can't happen when classes aren't masked. Everything points to vaccines for under 12 being just around the corner. The issue is not political. It's about the safety of our kids. We learned a lot about this virus in the last year. We know being indoors in close contact without masks with an unvaccinated population is a setup for viral spread. We know there is some seasonality to this virus with increased spread in the fall. We are poised to be sending our unvaccinated kids back to school in the fall with more contagious variants where indoor activities will be increased due to the season in an indoor setting with limited social distancing without masks. You don't need to be a scientist or a doctor to know this is a risky decision. I compliment the board on the difficult decisions you've made in the past year. You followed the science and CDC guidelines. Now there are brand new CDC recommendations that take into consideration the risk that Delta
Megan.
poses in our community.
Megan, I'm going to have to stop.
Okay, I urge you to reconsider.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next is Robert McPherson.
Good evening, Robert McPherson. Most of you know me, except for one new director. I've been up here multiple times throughout the pandemic to talk about this issue. Mostly stood in opposition to how the board has acted. I'm not going to lie. I've had public disagreements with the board on that. You voted how you wanted to. It's your choice. I'm here tonight more on representation of my daughter, who can't speak for herself. She's going into kindergarten this year. I have emailed Randy and Joan my concerns that we pulled her out of Camp Kindergarten after the board made the decision last month to end masking for kids in her age range that can't be vaccinated. This is a real problem. My daughter doesn't have access to a vaccine. I have access to a vaccine. Most people in this room have access to a vaccine if they're not immunocompromised. But yet they think it's appropriate, and the board has deemed it appropriate, that she should be put into a situation, especially in the fall when we don't have much of a choice, that she could be exposed to other children that may have the Delta variant of the COVID virus. As previous speakers have outlined far more eloquently than me, it spreads, and it will spread amongst children. Information has changed since last month. It's not the same as it was when you guys made that decision. Numbers are going up. The Associated Press just put out a story this afternoon that summer camps across the country are starting to see the spread of COVID amongst children. This isn't the canary in the coal mine that you guys need to hear. I'm not sure what that is. I know many of you don't have children in this age range anymore, so it may not hit home to you. It does hit home for me. We've had to make a lot of decisions since this pandemic began about what our daughter was exposed to and the situations that she was in. We didn't live in fear, as certain people in this room may feel. We just had to make decisions based off of the fact that there are long-term considerations to getting COVID, especially when you're a child. We don't understand it fully yet, and it's not worth the risk if it can be avoided. With that being said, I strongly urge this board to take up next month and reconsider the fact that they are not requiring masks for children that are not vaccinated. The CDC has made it very clear that if you don't have other mitigants in place for those that aren't vaccinated, that you're not doing enough. And with that, and regretfully, I will say this much: we are prepared to sue the school district if our daughter does get a COVID positive case, if there's long-term issues, if we have to take off work because we have to quarantine, because the school district is not taking a standard of care that they need to take when the pandemic's still going on. I'll seek out other parents, won't get as many people involved, but we will sue the school district. Furthermore, I'm very happy to go against any further referendums that the school district wishes to put forward until they start making decisions that are in the best interest of the community and not in the interest of those select few who You know, they might be local business owners, they might be donors, but they don't necessarily understand science, and they just think, well, this is political, masks aren't fair, my kids are having problems because of masks. But maybe it's their problem. I don't know at this point. But please, reconsider it. Enough is enough. Stop torturing parents that don't have access to vaccines for their children. Thank you.
Thank you. John Nettie?
Well, I guess I didn't realize that we were going to be talking about masks today, but I guess I have to say something. And as an ardent supporter of what your decision last time, I love freedom, and I think that government should be limited, and that government shouldn't dictate to us our individual choices for our children. I guess these people do. I guess they believe that it's not about freedom under the Constitution and our civil liberties. Ultimately, the parents should make the choice whether or not their kids go to school with a mask. And if they do, that's good. They protect their kids. Those of us who don't believe that it's necessary and that children are not in grave danger, since 99.99% of them are going to be safe, as is probably a better risk than flu or other diseases, we choose freedom first. And I think these other people should think about that. The other thing I want to talk about today is my concerns over the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and its objectives, what precisely we're looking at and why we're looking at it. I get the feeling that we're sort of assuming things are the way they are when that's not necessarily accepted by everybody, in the sense that we believe that there's systemic racism everywhere, and that equality shouldn't be the goal anymore, that perhaps equity is a goal. And I have grave concerns about anything that starts diving into government mandating or trying to discriminate against one entity or person over another to achieve some sort of equity. This is unconstitutional. And this gentleman here talked about how he may sue the school district. I think if we started to implement those kinds of policies by any name, whether you call it CRT, you call it whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of liability, I think, that the school district would face. And I think you're seeing parents rise up all over the country over this. We all want equality, but the law already establishes equality by law.
30 seconds.
I'm done.
Thank you, John.
I just want to say I'm a lawyer as well as a PhD chemist, and none of those things are unconstitutional.
Well, it's funny because I'm aware
Okay, it's fine. Eric, Peace.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
I don't have any comments prepared. I'm just your regular parent of 2 children in the school district. I'm a regular guy. I care about my community. I care about my neighbors. I do want everybody to be treated equally and treated fairly. But I have some concerns. First off, let me address, I didn't really plan on doing this, but let me address the mask thing. I do believe that you guys made a great decision last time in allowing parents to have control over their children and whether or not they wear masks. And parents are more than welcome to, pull their kids out if they don't want to have them in a dangerous situation where their kids are exposed to some pandemic. I get it, but it's time to not have the mask anymore. As one person over here said, hey, we're really on the downward slide. Sure, there might be a little uptick in this and that, but for the most part, the contagion level in the cases is not significant compared to what we had back in 2020. It's time to get our kids back in school and time to get the masks off. Now, let me talk a little bit about this, this term CRT. I know that's a buzzword. Everyone's talking about this critical race theory, whatever you call it. And I'm not saying that the school district is teaching critical race theory. What I'm saying is I'm worried and concerned that the school district is implementing policies where we're trying to treat people differently based on the color of their skin or dividing us. I don't want us to have division. We should be coming together as a community, coming together as a people, not trying to put labels on people and treating people differently. That, I think, is just wrong in itself, and it really scares me when, you have children coming home and talking about how evil America is, and how the country is systemically racist, and all of these things. Where are the kids getting this? I'm not going to get into my own specific situation, but I think it's concerning when you have children that are coming home with these kinds of ideals, and where are they learning it? Especially during the pandemic, when they weren't hanging out with all their friends, the only really interactions they had was the school districts. So that concerns me. And now I want to be very clear. I want our schools to teach about racism. I want our schools to teach about slavery. I want our schools to teach about the bad history that's happened in our country, as well as the good history. I want them to teach history, accurate history. That's how we avoid repeating the bad history, as we learn about the bad things. But that doesn't mean that that is the way it is now. We have challenges in our country. We have challenges with racism, of course. But that doesn't mean every interaction is about racism. It doesn't mean everything is about race. Right? We're human beings. So just start acting like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Greg Gens.
Hello, my name is Greg Gens. I live in Southbridge, and I have a 9 and 10-year-old daughter in Waunakee school system. I am optimistic you will listen and act again as you did concerning masking. Tonight, I'm here to speak about partisan political indoctrination concerning theories of systemic racism and potential initiatives put forth through velvety terminology of diversity, equity, and inclusion. To be clear, my children must be educated about racism, slavery, and objective, factual history, and the progress we have made as a country, so that history is not repeated. Theories that are structural principles of critical race theory, CRT, derived from Marxist oppressor-oppressed ideology, which I would be happy to discuss, have no place in K through 12 setting, in any indoctrination type role of students or staff. You may believe these principles and theories are moral, just, or not present here. I direct your attention to the 6-part multiple Tuesday night learning project held earlier this year in Waunakee, funded by $15,000, a third of which was authorized by the school board. The book, The White Racial Frame, was used as the basis of the learning project. The founder of CRT, Derek Bell, was acknowledged by the author on page 4 as being especially influential in the book. Sentences after crediting the founder of CRT, the author goes on to define foundational principles of CRT, the foundational principle of CRT, systemic racism, and states, quote, as in the past, systemic racism includes today the complex array of reoccurring exploitative, discriminatory, and other oppressive white practices targeting Americans of color. The institutionalized economic and other social resource inequities along racial lines, and the dominant white racial frame that was generated to rationalize and ensure white privilege and dominance over Americans of color. Systemic here means that the oppressive racist realities have from the early decades been well institutionalized and manifested in all of the society's major parts: economy, politics, education, religion, and the family, end quote. The author assigns fault of racial disparities that do exist today upon conscious dominance by an entire group of people over another because of the color of their skin. Racism to battle said systemic racism has no morality. Rather than sanctioning a message of hope, past achievement, and intrinsic human equality that has been achieved over many years, a message of oppressor and oppressed, white against black, all hinging on theories like intersectionality, which divides us into what groups we belong to, has been cast. My hopes are that most of you reacted quickly to social events that have occurred over the last year in an attempt at a positive message and healing. My hope is that you will recognize and work towards a different, more uniting message and initiatives in the future. As you know, your charge is education, not political indoctrination. As I said, I am optimistic. The DEI Ad Hoc Committee membership guidelines and activities are currently being scrutinized, and I hope there is a broader representation of community on that committee, including respectful skeptics to its activities. I would willfully volunteer to be a member of that committee and will apply. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Gabriel Stanley.
Hi, I'm a mom here in Waunakee, and I'm a nurse too. And about the masks, I don't know of the studies that show the masks work in a community setting. I've seen it from Harvard, from University of Louisiana. Even the CDC put out a study and then retracted it 2 days later. but their studies showed that masks in a community setting don't work. I'm a nurse, and when I care for a patient that has a respiratory virus, I'm wearing the N95. It's completely sealed around my mouth. There can't be any air exchange outside it. And we get fit tested every year. They put a hood over our face, put aerosol inside there, and if we have the mask on, if we can smell or taste it, we can't wear that mask. We have to put a hood on and a whole bodysuit. So masks in a community setting that are just cloth are absolutely, that's just giving a false sense of security because people are going to be closer together and children don't change masks. And when you wear a mask at a hospital, you wear it when you're in contact with a patient. You leave the room, you're not even wearing them over 15 minutes. You're throwing those away. So states that have no masks and don't have those lockdowns, that's where science is showing they're doing better. They have less cases. Children, less than 1% are getting it. So to have children wearing masks during soccer, passing out, having facial issues, skin issues, that seems to be more of a problem for children than getting COVID. But the science does not support, there's no studies out there from the major universities showing masks in a community setting works. So I'm not for the masks, and I think children should be children and be healthy, happy. The critical race theory, that's my next concern, is that I want kids to be kids, and I want them to have to learn things to treat each other badly or to recognize even more about our differences and that it's bad. I want people to recognize differences and feel good about themselves. And I think our community actually provides that. I think we have a lot of children. I think you're going to have a percentage in every population, in every age group, where you're going to have some kids that need some more guidance and help. But I don't think we have to treat our whole community that we're racist, and we have a big problem here. But I definitely think addressing it and paying attention to it and would be healthy for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the sheets I got, unless somebody filled one out and it didn't get to my desk. If not, we will end our public comment section. Thank you all for participating, those of you who spoke. We do truly welcome comments. It does help frame, what we do here, so thank you. Moving on the agenda, we have board reports. I don't think we have a teacher rep here today. So we're moving down to anything that the board members would like to share in the past month that they might have participated in.
Randy and I participated in a meeting with Mr. Zellner, Todd Schmidt from the village, just to talk about their plans, potential plans of a potential TIF district on Highway 19. And they've got one portion already identified as to who could potentially go into that, and they're forming up their plans regarding that. So it's, it was a really preliminary discussion on some of their thoughts, which I thought were good, as we talk about fostering a relationship, our relationship with the village.
Thank you, Jack.
If I could add one more thing. The other conversation that Jack and I had with Chris and Todd while they were here was with regards to the village's plans that they've been putting in place with regards to the previous library building. They were going to be here this evening to kind of share with us just an update from the village on some of the work that they are progressing with there, but there's a few pieces that they're still waiting for. So as Jack and I discussed, we invited them to come next month. So I think that'll be informative to the board as we kind of look at some issues that kind of intersect with between the village and the school district.
Yeah, and again, as Randy stated, the reason we pushed it off was just to provide them an opportunity to get the best information possible, because they've got several things that are coming within the next week or two, and again, what we're going to do is make sure that we get the right information as opposed to getting the fast information. So Randy and I concurred to move this off a month, providing them an opportunity to collect the needed information.
Thank you, Jack, for doing that. Any other board member have something to share? I have actually a couple things. I was able to attend the rally that spoke against the Joint Finance Committee on the budget on June 21st. I went down to the Capitol. About 100 people, you know, it was well publicized. We did have a staff member from Waunakee that were one of 7 speakers. Gina Pagel did a wonderful job speaking against the budget. And we all know that the budget is kind of, hasn't changed much. Hopefully we have some details coming in the near future that might help us. The other thing that I did is I did via Zoom the Dane County Equity Workshop on June 24th. And that workshop was done in kind of 2 parts. The first part was more equity awareness with, similar to, I know some of the other board members have attended in the past, with the individuals, Percy Brown from Middleton and Rainy Briggs, yeah. So the first part was more on equity awareness. The second part was on critical race theory and the background and information on that. And I guess to the board members, I took a number of notes, and you know, at some time we might want to look at some of that information, and I think there will be some follow-up with Dane County Equity Committee, and maybe we can have a little more attendance in that field. So those were the 2 things I did. Following my attendance at the rally, because I signed in, I did have 2 reporters call me for interviews on the budget, and I let them know everything that Steve has taught me, and it still didn't do anything. So, any other things that the board members want to share? Thank you. So, moving on to the next item is really on the DEI agenda, and this is something that came up last month, but just in our board development, it wasn't an agenda item. I asked to have it put here so that we can kind of formalize and take some action. And one is on membership, and I think that the first item that is in your packet is on the membership, the current membership as it was designed last year. So
I think, you know, before we talk about membership, I think what we should talk about is the purpose of the committee. You know, because I think, you know, one of the things when the board sets up a ad hoc committee, it should be discussed at the board on what the committee should do. And when this committee was set up, you know, it came to us one meeting, we approved it the next meeting. And we said, you go ahead and figure out the agenda. You go ahead and figure out what we need to do. I think what we need, before we, you know, really put together the membership and so forth, we need to really define the, and that could potentially be a retreat.
Mark.
Hey, with all due respect, Jack, we have the charge in front of us. One of our board members created that, shared it with us as, do you support these ideas? We voted for it. I don't know what the total vote was. Obviously, it passed with a majority. In hindsight, I agree that we probably should look more closely at those items. In reviewing for tonight's meeting, I can see a number of them that I would like to have removed from it. I can see there are some that I think are unattainable. Some are really total out of our realm as a school district, be focusing on. But in fairness to the process, how much we knew of that direction, that we were given the direction as we voted on it as a board by one of our fellow board members.
We were given it, we didn't have a discussion necessarily
Right.
on the board. And if the board is gonna set up an ad hoc committee, the board should say, this is what we need help on, community. It shouldn't be decided by one board member saying, this is, you know, what I feel, or, you know, what his idea of it is. And I think at this point, it's probably a good idea to put a pause, let's talk about it, and then bring it back when we have more direction that we can give the committee.
Right.
But what I want to do is make sure that we make a plan on how to give that direction, either through the whole board at a retreat, like you said, through goals committee. You know, on here, it was kind of charged to the president and vice president. Mark and I could kind of draft something, bring it back here. We could go back and forth until we were more content with the charge. But I just want a process and a plan made.
Again, Jack, there were 2 meetings with a discussion on this. It wasn't one person wrote it, it came in, and it was voted on. That's not what happened. And there are 7 items up there, and you may say that they are too vague. You may say some of them are inappropriate, and that's fine. We change policy every month.
Yeah.
We change something, and that's not a problem. But to sit there and make a blanket statement that this was not done, this was not discussed, and it was done by one board member on their own is totally misrepresenting what happened. And those 7 items, some of them are very clear. The concept that possible recommendations to the board around language or curriculum or board policy that affects elements of our community that fall within this makes sense. Why wouldn't you want that? And I don't understand why there's this feeling that there somehow isn't community involvement when out of the 28 members, half of them are community members. And every single person on that committee is a member of the school district, either by hire or by living here. And there's 28 people on it. I think it's really misrepresenting a lot of what has happened and what is trying to happen to say that that wasn't ever discussed and one person did it on their own.
Dave, I think what you need to do on a ad hoc committee is really provide direction. And I remember during those discussions that this was going to be a 12 to 18 month committee. They were going to put a report together. Are we going to see a report in 12 to 18 months? I don't know. And then it became a committee that it's going to be ongoing into perpetuity. And, you know, I think what you're doing is really, you know, it appears that they're setting the agenda. It's not the board that's setting the agenda.
Actually, what they've been doing for the past several months is going through outline that was provided by a national organization on how to look at a school district in these types of areas. And so I think that report is going to be them taking that outline, in which they're having a large meeting this summer to finish it. And that's what that report is. And if you've been looking at their minutes, you'll see that they've been covering various parts of that at every meeting. And that will be finished, and the 12 to 18 months is in November. I mean, that's not like it's next week and suddenly we're saying they haven't done anything. And they haven't set their own agenda. They took literally number 7, and they took the fact that they should look at all these different policies and guidance, which were basically 1 and 6, and they found a national report that kind of covers a lot of that, and they're taking what is in the Waunakee School District and filling in those portions. And they're putting that together. I'm not sure how you're saying that they've created their own agenda or that they're not doing anything. I mean, what is it they're doing that doesn't fall within one of those 7 items? What is it that they've gone and done that doesn't fall within that?
Can I know we could debate this, a long time tonight. We've heard from the public, and I know that there are people around the board here who have a lot of concerns about this committee. I feel, one, we do need to look at what it was charged to do, and it needs to be, I think, reworked somewhat. I agree with Dave that it took a different twist with the audit but that seemed to be a valid twist because of the items that were listed up there. So, an ad hoc committee is an ad hoc committee, and it sometimes has a suggested flow, and it veers because of necessity. I do think that we need to kind of get it directed and objectives and try to point it in the right direction. And we can do that 3 different ways. We can do it as a full board, which I think, we probably would want to do it in a retreat setting. We could send it to our goals committee. That's probably the best place to put it. Or, it was kind of designed with the president and vice president, and Mark and I could reword it and bring it back in August as a preliminary, as a springboard to give your reaction. And I would like to involve Randy and get some, kind of frame it up. And I know Tim has been involved in it. Maybe Tim could join us and bring it back in August. So, it's really up to you.
My concern is that this could be a 3-4 month process if we don't put enough urgency on it right now. And so if it's going to go to the goals committee, I think they have to be given the charge of having recommendations by August.
I agree.
Because we still then have to have the discussions, which will carry through to September, and that takes us to almost the year of its inception. I do think the current committee deserves the respect of completing their report. And I don't know if it was October, December, November off the top of my head, but I know it hasn't been 12 months yet. And it's just not the charge. I think we also need to look at the committee makeup and decide does that make sense at this point, or can we should we refine that to a certain degree? Some of at least one of the board, the DEI committee leaders suggested the number is too large to really be workable. And yet we don't want to reduce the number in terms of committee input. So, but I think we have 2 things to look at, not just the direction. But it has to be done now, not 6 months from now.
Right. Ted?
Yeah, I was going to just, to that point of being the membership itself, I wasn't involved with it initially, but maybe that was a little bit too loose in terms of defining what that membership is, but it seems like it's been pointed out that maybe we're kind of not falling under it correctly, so.
Well, we definitely have members that are on the list that are not in the role that they were assigned at that time. We have a board member, we have 3 students, we have at least 1 staff member that's no longer with the district. I feel that there's definite membership that is outside of the role they were assigned to. And then Rebecca, you went and you polled everybody, because there's a number of other people who have indicated that they would like to leave the committee. So between the people who want to leave the committee and the people who are no longer in the role that they were in as that part of the committee, maybe we need to at least adjust the membership with those components as we re-look at the charge of the whole committee, and then decide You know, I definitely feel we want the student reps back, but we need to do that when school starts. We need to go and find those students. We had somebody in the public who volunteered. You know, it isn't going to be done all at once, but I think we need to rework the committee, clean up the membership as best we can, and then decide what we want to add to the membership.
Well, we also have to realize that the membership's going to change.
It will change.
It's going to evolve.
It's
going
going
to
to.
change. People are going to change.
People
drop
come
out for
in and
certain
out.
reasons. We have to have a plan just to replace them
Right.
as soon as we can.
I think there needs to also be a process on putting people on here.
There is.
You know, it can't be just a member of the board or two members of the board. You know, it's got to be board.
So you say the entire board should vote on who's a member each time it changes?
Well, I would agree there has to be some sort of process in place. It can't just change in the middle of the year all the time.
Well, there was an
There-
application.
There is an
There is
application
an
process that was
application,
used
and
the
it
first
was,
time.
yeah, there was a process.
And then the board approved on it? Is that what? how
The
did
board
that happen?
president is the one that did the final approval.
It was in that it was up to the, it's under there about the members of the committee upon application to the chair and the board president.
And how was that application made available to the, whoever the, I mean, how was it presented to people?
To
It was
the
put up
public.
on the
To the public.
Waunakee Community District website and sent out to anyone who requested
I
it.
think it was
Anyone
sent
who
out- I think
requested.
it was sent out district-wide. I think we had like 80 or 90.
Yeah, it was almost 100 people applied. It
So I
was
know
huge.
it was promoted out relatively widely as far as, we pushed it out through like, I think, school communications. I think there was a piece in the newspaper that Roberta did an article on how you could access it.
With these 7 charges then? I mean, so it was pretty
Yeah,
clear as
this was, I believe what we did was we took the charge that the board gave, and then we, along with that, had the application, so people could see both of them, and then they could apply accordingly. So that was at least how we got the initial list, and that was the process that was followed, and then, I believe then, president and vice president then put together kind of from the application piece, the slate that came before the board. I don't think the board voted.
We did not.
But
So it was left up to them, vice president, president.
But it was
of the
brought, it was
committee.
presented here, but it wasn't voted.
Depending on the position, like the superintendent picked some people. And then 2 of them were 2 board people volunteer.
Okay.
So as far as the process too, because I was one of the initial board people, I mean, it was obvious that we needed a foundation to work from, and I think that's where the audit came from. So I think it has been beneficial, but it is a lot of time. And meetings were getting to that 2-hour mark, and we had to start saying, we have to put a time limit to this, so that's what took the audit that much longer, so. But as far as I know, that's coming to an end, so, but something like this needed a foundation, we just didn't have it to start, so. Something we learned when we got in, so.
So what is the feeling about the direction? Goals Committee, Randy, Mark, I, Tim, retreat, full board.
I say retreat.
I say narrow it down and get it done sooner. So if that means the president, vice president, or the goals committee, I would go in that direction.
Any other thoughts?
I just think that whole membership needs to be defined a little bit better. Why, so I know they're going through with the audit right now, but,
Oh, I feel that that's the next question, Ted, is we need to decide when do we change this membership?
and I feel that has to happen quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I feel on it.
Yeah. What do you feel about the direction? Setting the goals,
Probably
reworking
the
the
retreat.
charge, more in the
A retreat
retreat
to kind of
category?
get that.
I would like to suggest if we do the retreat category or whatever we do, there's a plan right now that there are 2 meetings scheduled for the DEI committee this summer. That should be done by, I think the second one was early August,
Call Rebecca, I don't.
if I recall.
We have, we polled the committee. There are some tentative dates set. We were kind of holding on it till after this meeting. So one was coming up here in July, and the second one would be in early August.
Okay, so the July one was to finish the audit, and the August one was they were gonna take a look at, kind of their own retreat. I'd like to suggest we do our retreat afterwards with the idea of asking the committee to look through their own items and say, what do they think should be changed? So we have their input too, as an idea before we just go deciding it all. I'd like to hear from the people who've been doing it for the past year, what they see as important and where they think they could be most effective.
Mark?
Rather than that, I would much rather see the audit completed and then in their report, a summary of what's taken place and a vision that they would have going forward.
Same thing.
But again, we need that almost yesterday, not September. If we don't get to that to September, we're talking, it could be December before this thing gets resolved. And so that concerns me.
That concerns me.
Well, I think the people that have backed out probably are not participating right now. So even if we put the application out there, we brought people in, at least they could be involved in the audit, but they could also learn
Yeah,
before they
Well,
actually.
the audit is gonna be done in July.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Perfect.
It's already
They're
supposed
at
to
least
be over.
listening to
So
what's
you have
going
one
on.
meeting and the audit will be done.
Suppose, that's the goal.
Can we pause there and then do our revamp?
Well, they have a plan of August to kind of do their look at what they've done. I would say, so they're gonna have a July meeting and an early August meeting.
Okay, so
And
can
then
we ask that
they
to
don't
be
have-
summative? That's where they prepare the report.
I would expect you'll get something, the drafting part of that summative report would happen after that August meeting.
Yeah, I would think it's just.
That's gonna be their input point,
Yeah,
and then,
so we could have that by what, September 1st?
I would think that's possible. I mean, you gotta realize you're asking volunteers, and the current chair is a volunteer, and you're saying you can't give them a timeline, but I think I can work with them, and I think we can get something done.
Why can't you give them time?
Well, I wouldn't give them a hard date, but I think September's very doable.
I suggest that we let that committee work within the time when they need, but I think we need a smaller group from the board to be looking at the direction we want to go, and then bring the two ideas together.
Right.
I don't think a board development with so many tentative things out there is going to happen within the next month. I think we need a focused opinion from the board, and then look at what the committee is suggesting also, and then mold them, meld them.
I think the other thing that, we always talk about listening sessions. Another thing that we could do is put together a community listening session in September, because it seems like, all of this work that's happened over the year isn't going to be done until August. And with that, we can take that and provide information to our community and let the community help us guide what's happening. Because this is really a community issue. And, I agree with diversity. I think we need rights, we need inclusion, but what is the question that we're really trying to solve with the committee?
Isn't it right there in number one? We're looking at how are we as a district living up to the laws that are already stated for inclusion and discrimination and disabilities, and have we forgotten anything? Are we doing that? We might find out we're doing it fine. I don't think it's a big new deal. It's reviewing what we're doing.
And I think reviewing that audit will give us that information of where should we be devoting some energy and attention that we are neglecting.
But if you look at those, do you think we're not following those?
That's what the audit's gonna.
That's,
That was
We
the
don't know.
purpose for the committee.
you're judging the answer before.
And
We
so
said
we're
unless
gonna
someone
get-
can look at it in the details, you don't know what you don't know until you review, reflect.
And since the membership has changed so much, so you're gonna go through and finish the audit. Give us the audit. The committee doesn't need to go and analyze, this is what we need to do, because we're gonna evaluate it as a board anyway and determine from that. So do the audit, let's get that membership so that
In
we can go
place,
and then
yeah.
redefine what's happening, get the membership changed or, you know, in the meantime.
Yeah.
Well, I think the one thing, talking with students through this and family friends of students of color and different nationalities in other districts, right here, and we as parents don't hear what they go through. And there, a lot of them are brushing it off like, well, that's just common. That's not right. All right, so those are the type of things that we're discovering.
I know some
Yes.
of us have gotten emails from alumni of our school saying how they were discriminated against, and they didn't say anything while in school because they wanted to get through their classes.
But to have students just
And
sort
now
of
it's
say,
not.
well, that just happens. I'm like, that's just not right.
That's not right. Right.
All right,
Well,
so,
and I'd like to recognize the committee for actually putting a reporting process as one of their recommendations, so that those things can be reported. And so, I mean, there are a lot of things that, because of the committee, have been taking place, are curriculum studies, sort of a parallel outcome, both their own and with the committee. So I think it's important to recognize the committee isn't just doing the audit. They have been looking at a lot of different things to enhance the district with regards to equity.
What's this reporting process?
they've been working actually on a reporting process.
Is that on here, or is that something that's?
That is something else,
That's something that came up as a need.
through the audit.
I think you probably throw it under number 6, a recommendation of something that should be done in order to help alleviate some of what they've seen.
So we're gonna get something from that, like this process of reporting incidents and how that's gonna take place?
I think one of the recommendations they're working on is around that topic. So it's not part of the charge of the committee. I think it's one of the pieces that, as they start looking at the recommendations coming forward, from my understanding, that's one of the items that potentially will come back here for then a report and consideration by the board.
Okay.
So can we kind of conclude, we have one more meeting to finish up the audit, and then we'll wait for their report. In the meantime, what is the voice? Are the students still attending, David? Because I feel student voice.
One of the
is
students has
really-
still been attending, even though he's graduated.
I mean,
I've-
until we get more students there, that's a valuable voice. I would assume that our staff member, the administrator from Prairie, probably won't anymore. I mean, she's left the district.
If you look at the board, at the committee, there were 28 members. 7 of them have either left or requested to leave. The other 21 are still, per se, in attendance. Does every one of them make every meeting? No, no more than all of us make every meeting. But they are identified there of the ones who've requested to leave. In fact, we don't currently have a second board member on anymore. So I hope somebody else will volunteer and join me. But remember, the original charge of the thing was no less than 12 members. We've been at over 20, so we've actually been having a lot more input than you would expect.
So
I would make a motion that we allow the committee to continue in completing its audit. To Mark's point, put, kind of the gold ribbon, what they found out, bullet points, and then we reevaluate the committee with either a listening session with the community or a board retreat. I would prefer a listening session with the community because I think there's a lot of people out there that have different opinions of this, and it's good to get all of those people talking about it.
And David, do you feel that we could kind of project a timeline for that report, or maybe after the meeting?
I think we should talk to Joel before we say that. I feel comfortable in saying what the two meetings are scheduled for. I don't feel comfortable in saying that these 20 other people are all going to say, we're done. I don't want to put that tag on them. I'm just one member of the committee.
So, but they will, after this audit, Joel or somebody from the committee will write up a report. Will it go back to the committee for approval before it comes to us, or what do you think that
I don't know.
process?
That hasn't been discussed in detail.
I think that makes the most, I mean, that's where I would end it, and then go to what Jack's saying there with
And
his
look
motion.
at a
And
listening
we're gonna
session.
evaluate that audit.
That would allow them to have their next two meetings, the one meeting to finish the audit, and then their other one would be basically the final, what I'm understanding, David,
Right,
is finalizing the report that would come forward.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing? And then from there, basically then,
We reorganize either through a retreat or a listening session.
and we do
I would
have,
strongly go to the listening session.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Don't we have to make it
Jack had one.
specific then? I mean, is it kind of, without being critical, by giving options in your motion?
Take out the retreat and put in the listening session. That's my motion.
So we have a motion. We have not had a second.
I second the motion.
can I
Any
add-
other-
can I add
yeah.
one question? One of the things the board discussed a couple months ago was having a listening session. I believe it was before school started. Trying to bring back, and so that could be a piece that this could be part, it was actually one to kind of get feedback before we went back to school. But, I mean, as we hear through different comments, we're going to have comments around this topic as well.
Mhm,
So
yeah.
that could be a piece that, just to kind of
It
put that
could
back in
be.
a reminder that we do have that as a piece that we wanted to do at some point before school starts.
So do we
Another
want
comment?
to, with the motion on the table, would it then be appropriate to have a special meeting following that to focus strictly on this business so that we can put together what we heard from the committee, what we're hearing from the listening session, and frame what we want going forward?
I mean, I think that's a possibility. I don't know if we have to decide that tonight.
I have a
but-
question. What are we having a listening session on if we haven't heard from what the committee's going to say?
It would be after we get the report, Judy, that's when we're having a listening session. So this.
So
just
we
may-
will have seen the report, and how will the community be asking questions? Will they have seen that?
Well, it'll be
It's
made
public
available.
record.
Publicize it.
Public, okay.
It'll be made available. Okay, so we have a motion on the table to have the committee finish their two meetings, not do anything with the membership right now, and at that point, we get a report, and then we look at next step of, well, we have a listening session, we just don't have a date and what to do with that.
But again, the two meetings, the one was finish the audit, and then they're gonna
Put together.
put
the
together,
report.
and then they're gonna review what they put together, and then that's that.
Put
the
it
second
together.
meeting
I
is?
mean, that was I mean, this is the question I asked, and I'm going to look at Dave, Brian, you were part of some of this work. I mean, is that possible I mean, you're looking at trying to do a listening session based off of what's in a report, but the report, I think, needs to somehow be presented here.
Yeah, first.
So that so that you all can see it and hear it, and also so that it's available for the community to hear it and see it, and particularly since we are. So I mean, is that something, and could that be done by the August board meeting?
Can I
So that-
bring in Tim?
I'm looking at Tim a little bit,
Yeah.
because I know
Tim,
he's
Tim,
been
come in
part of
and
it.
Sort of,
And-
because I don't know what the audit's gonna look at, like,
Yeah.
when they print off all this stuff.
Is that feasible, Tim, I guess is my question. If we have the two meetings, and I know you've had some conversations with Joel, as far as, is it possible to have that report of the recommendations come at the August board meeting?
Not for the August board meeting.
Not for the
I
August
mean,
board meeting?
possibly. I don't want
Right.
to say no, but
Right.
it's not a guarantee. So I
Right.
mean, the two meetings that we have ready to be scheduled,
Yep.
that we're kind of waiting for the discussion tonight to come to a conclusion so we can get it on people's calendars. We have a longer meeting later this month, where the hope is complete the remaining sections of the audit, maybe be able to do some processing around going back to the parts of the audit that were, by now a few months ago, and just kind of get everybody back up to speed. And then the thinking was the early August meeting, we would have that all fresh in mind, and the committee would be able to say, what are some key areas that jumped out of this that would be recommendations for more follow-up? So that, I'm thinking, Rebecca, were we thinking August 6th, I'm kind of thinking?
It was probably going to be, the 26th would be the first meeting, and August, no, it would have been like August 5th.
Okay, so I mean, just the one thing on timing is, if that's how it works for the committee, then coming out of that meeting on the 5th, we would then need to formalize that in a document that would then come to you. Now, it's possible that we may make, with it being summer and a bigger meeting scheduled for, the July meeting, we might make better progress and we might be able to make up time. I'm just a little nervous about meet on the 5th, come up with a document, get it to you for your meeting a week later.
The 9th.
To your point, this is vacation. August is probably heavy vacation time. So if we're going to plan something, to get community input, you're probably looking at September, early September, and that fits your schedule.
Right.
Yeah, September would, no
So if
question,
we had a
we would have
report
a
by
document, plenty
September.
of time for September.
So if we
let's-
had the report
By
in
September.
August, we'd have plenty of time to publicize it, let the community take a look at it, and have it like mid-September, maybe second or third week in September.
Right.
The goals committee can kind of flesh out some of this as well.
Yep. I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about, just to add in a comment, one of the pieces that we've wanted to do as part of your goals process was to have these community engagement meetings every other month throughout the school year. I think we could utilize this as the first one in September. It can serve a purpose of reporting on the outcomes, other things going on in the school district around this area, and then also a listening piece. So it could accomplish multiple of those pieces and put it at the September time.
So is there a need to have the board meet before the listening session? Because that puts us at September 13th.
I think we just call
Can we
special
look
meeting
at that
September.
in August?
We can look at that.
We can look at that in August. Okay, we still have a motion on the table that we haven't voted on.
I mean, if you get technical on what you said, once that audit's done, the committee just finished it, what its requirements were. So, hey, I'm not sure that you have to deal with membership after that, but
And that's something we'll talk
we'll
about.
look at.
Yeah,
Okay.
we will look at. So, everybody understand what we're voting on?
Can we hear the motion?
Yeah, Rebecca,
mind
what do we
that.
got?
Okay. Jack made a motion to allow the committee to continue the audit and then to develop a report during their second meeting. They will bring that report to the board in early September. At that time, they will,
The report would be in August.
They're writing it in August.
They're writing it in August.
So we'd have the report in August.
But
Right.
we
No.
won't have it, we won't have it at our
No.
August.
that's
meeting.
what Tim was just saying.
Tim just said.
Presented at the September meeting.
Okay.
Present in September,
Okay.
and then that would be reevaluated with a listening session with the community.
Okay, everybody got the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca.
Okay, moving on to committee reports, starting with HR.
Right. We have one action item on the agenda tonight for the HR committee. This is with regards to a change to our employee guidelines for our head custodians and maintenance workers with regards to cell phone use. Particularly, this is important to us as they have a district issued cell phone that they utilize that. As we need to on emergency basis is for callbacks, et cetera. So I think this went through the HR committee and was approved to move forward on a 3-0 motion, and we'd recommend it this evening.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any questions or concerns about that motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And that was all for the HR committee until we have more information on the budget. The budget committee.
Our budget committee was blown up with
Budget.
with
the
the
lack of
budget. Basically, the guidelines that we provided administration to put our budget together on increases and things like that were zeroed out in the budget. So what we're going to be doing and providing guidance to Steve and his team is put together the fourth draft of the budget. And we also talked about having a meeting after the budget was signed. The budget's signed now, so that we can start looking at strategy, going forward as to how do we handle that. Steve, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that later on in the agenda, we have a legislative report where Randy and I will just share some information at a high level about what the governor's approval of the budget meant, and then we're going to request a special board meeting for the items that we were originally intending to bring to tonight's meeting. We certainly appreciate the board members giving us an opportunity to just hold off at least a week or so on those issues so that we could see what the governor did last week, and that's my only comment related to the third draft. We just appreciate you giving us that additional time to put it together.
So the other thing that we talked about is the Moody credit report. And basically we've got Fund 41 where we've been building up to do our long-term maintenance. And we've got in front of you, and we need a vote on that.
Yeah, we have two items on the agenda. One is the fund balance classifications, and then the second one is the Moody's revision to policy 661.5. So we might want to do the fund balance ones first. This is something we have to do on an annual basis, is define our fund balance classifications. And then we can jump into the Moody's piece. Steve, anything to add about the fund balance classification?
I just noted for you in board book that this was discussed by the budget committee at the June budget committee meeting. Was intending to bring it forward to the June board meeting, but there were just so many other topics. It was inadvertently left off, so we're bringing it back in July. But the budget committee did discuss this in June. The item to note is really in italics up there, that the committee is recommending putting $30,000 a year towards the replacement cost of the soccer turf in the same manner the district has been doing for the replacement of the Warriors Stadium turf. That's the only item of note. Otherwise, we're continuing forward with our past practice. The committee did recommend on a 3-0 motion for approval of this topic from the school board.
So we do need a motion for
Yes, we do.
that. Anybody?
Motion to approve as presented.
Any other discussion on that fund balance report? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
So one of the things with the Moody credit report, what you'll see is we needed to do a policy change. What we had is a policy that put $300,000 a year based on our past referendum to long-term maintenance projects. Moody does not recognize Fund 41 as part of the financial health of the district. So in order to maintain and improve our credit rating, the budget committee talked about moving Fund 41 and spending down Fund 41, but basically changing our policy so that that money is still allocated to maintenance. So the policy change, you'll see the edits, but the reason that we did that is to basically please the credit rating report.
Rebecca, would you mind bringing up the policy revision, please, on the screen?
This one.
It's the, yes, please. Oh, no, there was another one, sorry. I think it was maybe the last attachment. Let's see here. Was it the second one? Nope, that's the original one. There was a motion at the budget committee to revise the
I think,
policy.
wasn't it the one she opened up for?
Yeah, I think, but that
Right.
wasn't, I mean, if you wouldn't mind pulling that back up again, Rebecca.
I think it was.
Down a little bit.
Down.
Fund balance strategy.
Run all the way.
There you go.
There.
Okay, so this is the version that was presented to the budget committee. We did have a motion at the budget committee to make a recommendation to be clear that the unspent funds carrying forward to the next fiscal year remain in the maintenance and technology department. So I thought we attached the revised policy off the budget committee meeting, but it looks like it's still the one from the budget committee meeting. So there was a motion, if you see in bold, the allocations for the maintenance and technology departments will be committed to Fund 10 with any unspent funds carrying forward to the next fiscal year. We did add the language that stated that continuing with the maintenance and technology departments to be more clear.
That's in the previous statement, it's actually it's in there.
Okay, where
So that's in the previous agenda item. XB2.
Up here?
Right there, that's, yep.
Do you mind opening that one up?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so we just grabbed it in the wrong
Good eye.
agenda. Thank you, Mark, I really appreciate that.
Thank you, that's like
That was very helpful.
finding the needle in
So,
the haystack.
Some of us spend a lot of time on board books.
Jack, you made a motion to be more clear with the policy, and this is the one that includes the statement and will remain in either the maintenance or technology department, so there's full clarity for everybody with what's exactly happening. But Jack outlined the reasons why the budget committee is bringing this forward, which is a goal of getting our credit report back to where it was and to seek an improvement. And we would need a policy change to be able to do that. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that any board members have.
Would this be first reading and then we vote on it next, or can we vote on it
You
tonight?
can do it either way. The policy does not require 2 readings. We've normally done that as part of practice. As things have come out of the policy committee, this was a piece of the advice I gave to the budget committee was to bring it directly here as opposed to going through the policy committee. If everybody is comfortable with this language, we could do it in one motion and not have to bring it back. Otherwise, this would be, if you'd like to see it
I make the
next
motion
month, we
to-
can do that.
I make the motion to move it forward.
Second.
And Mark had a question.
No,
You're
he's gonna
good?
make a motion.
Did you have a question?
No, I was just gone, I said the budget meeting and back and it's like, hey, my first policy thing I can bring up, I'm chairing it. Now
Sorry, Ted, you'll get your chance.
We're doing a whole policy book review. You'll have.
I know.
Those 200, so you got them. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sorry, Ted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next up is Facility Committee.
On the facility committee, we did have some equipment requests, but decided to hold off on those until seeing the state budget. So I'm guessing you'll be bringing those around again. But there were some items that did get passed to be sent to the board with the recommendation. The first one was consideration of a capital project at the middle school, basically an update on the fire alarm panel so that it can be fully addressable. And that passed on a 3-0 motion. So I make a motion to approve the capital project at the middle school.
Second.
And there's a race for second.
There was a race. Any other questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item is the portable classrooms behind the middle school that, due to our increased enrollment and the fact that we're going to be at that level such that the current 2 portable classrooms aren't enough anymore, we get to add more onto the blacktop. And this was the final pricing. It looks like we did get the building itself a little cheaper than we were initially estimating. But of course, now you're starting to see the costs for actually installing it and having to get water and electrical to it. So you end up at just about the same point we thought it was going to be. And the committee recommended that on a 3-0 motion.
Yeah, this was just actually an informational item.
Oh, don't we have to actually approve the funding for the bids under
I
the,
think we already did that at the previous meeting, when we gave the authority for us to move ahead.
oh, I thought that was just the authority for the building, not for the construction that has to be added. Okay.
Yeah,
I have a question
Sure.
just regarding the total cost. It looks like we're at about 120,000 with the 3 years rental, the platform, and the soil boring, but there's still about 15K for electrical and water hookup, you think?
There's some additional funds there. You can see the Westfall quote there.
Right.
At the 27. I mean, this is also a 3-year lease. We have previously looked at like a 2-year.
Right.
So this is a different vendor. John's not here tonight because he's at a village meeting to get the submittals approved for this work. So there's some things we have to get approved. So he's at that meeting this evening to do that. So this generally, we're pleased with the product. It's exactly the same layout as the one that we have there now, which has worked well. It has kind of a space in between the 2 classrooms, so you have some noise barrier piece. It'll fit within that scope of the space that we have there. It's actually coming in what I would estimate as less than really what we initially had probably projected. I guess the way I looked at the motion at the last meeting where we approved it was approving us to move forward with securing and installing the trailer, kind of given what the general parameters, and I felt administration-wise that we had the ability to go forth and do that. We felt the 3-year lease made sense as far as at least giving us the to work through any of the other space issues, and that gets us through that larger bubble group there, so that we're not having to hopefully come back and revisit that before we have a larger question in front of the community.
So we don't need a motion?
I don't think we do. If the board feels we do, then I would entertain that, but I feel we had the authority last time.
Yeah.
The next one then is about the soccer field, about naming it and adding 2 entrances to it. The first part is about naming. The committee, well, the fundraising group initially came in with Waunakee pitch, but then as we talked about branding, we talked about naming it Warrior Pitch so that you can have Warrior Field, Warrior Pitch, and eventually Warrior Diamond. I'm waiting for that for the baseball team. So the recommendation from the committee on a 3-0 motion was to name it Warrior Pitch. And they need this for the next time.
So what they had in front of you was one was to name it. The naming piece was also part of the ticket entrances, and the ticket entrances are in-kind donations from multiple vendors around the community. So you can see the different pieces. I think you could do this as both as one motion if you would choose to.
Did we actually move, I mean, I know there was discussion on it. Was that the motion to actually say Warrior?
In the end, we were saying naming it Warrior.
I think what we said was that we would bring the Warrior, the naming piece back here for discussion.
Yeah.
But so the motion, I believe, if I recall, was that we would approve the project for them to move forward with the gates, and that we would bring back here the discussion of whether calling it Waunakee Pitch or Warrior Pitch, because that's part of the signage that goes on the archway.
So can't we just approve the Warrior Pitch right now, and then we don't have to
Good.
bring it back? we had the discussion with the fundraising committee. They didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I move we approve the naming, or the renaming to Warrior Pitch,
Second.
And the 2 entrances?
and the two entrances.
Second that as well.
Okay, so both the name of the Warrior Pitch as well as the whole project of the 2 entry. I would just like to thank the committee members, Dave Kettner and the youth. I think Chris Barber was here, and the people who have donated this. This is a huge, I mean, I hope you opened up the gate
Yep.
picture. It's a beautiful entryway, and it's all being done through their efforts and through the community donations, so great effort.
Very nice.
So, all in favor of those motions, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And the last one has to do with golf hitting bays at the Meadows, which basically all we're approving is a fundraising effort. So basically it's a club using our name, and they're going to go out and fundraise. It's a little bit different though, because the actual facility is not going to be on school property. It's going to be at the Meadows. And what they're fundraising for is building driving pads, which is going to be a large concrete pad. And then there will be a piece of equipment that can register how they hit the ball, and how far it went and everything else. Even though it only goes a short distance, it's a net. The equipment will actually belong to the team though, and will not be usable by the Meadows. But the pad and everything will be on Meadows property. The team will have priority usage, but it could be used by the public as part of the Meadows.
Dave, is it somewhat sheltered, or just an open air?
No, open air with a large catch net around them, and then I think it was about 6 pads. But basically a kind of a semicircle concrete driving pad.
So this, from a policy perspective, this one's a bit unique. Normally what we have as far as any sort of a facility enhancement needs to come to the board before fundraising begins. This just happens to be a facility enhancement that would happen not on our site, but I felt, given that the uniqueness of this, it should come before the board for at least your understanding and then consideration, so that the golf teams can move forward with fundraising for this project.
The Meadows has stated they will take up all the maintenance costs going forward.
I think the concern that we kind of brought up after that, seeing that it is theirs, then they don't see, and the reason they hadn't moved forward with something like this in the past is there was no revenue gain from it, so they didn't want to embark on it. But, I mean, I think we could envision that that could change, you know, and so the worry there, the concern would be that, hey, you guys can't use it now because we're open. So it's almost like we should have something set in there that says during season, we're allowed to have it this time.
I would think, and I think that, thanks for the reminder there, Ted, I think the motion that we should put forth in looking at this is that there should also be a memorandum of understanding of really kind of how we're utilizing it and kind of what this initial fundraising effort is. And so that is a piece that can hopefully stand and move forward for our students. The Meadows has been a great partner as far as supporting our kids. I think Aaron shared we have like 80 golfers this year between the girls and the boys program. They're not charging us for the green fees for any of those pieces, which in the other districts they get charged for what happens at those programs. So they've been a great partner. So I think it's a worthy project for us to do. But I like the idea that it was brought forward about some sort of an MOU with it.
I make a motion, we accept or we approve the fundraiser along with having our administration athletic department work out a memorandum of understanding.
I second that.
Again, I would just like to thank the partnership of 6 Mile Creek Golf and what they have done to our golfing community and working with our young golfers as they learn that sport. So, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And that's it for the facility committee.
Moving on to administrative reports. Summer school.
Yeah, the first piece, last month I shared that as we finished up our first session of summer school last Thursday, so I just wanted to bring forth a report on really what's going on with summer school. This year we have 2,400 students, so thereabouts, who are registered for our program. That's about 87% of our pre-pandemic enrollment. So that's, I guess that would be probably predictable that we wouldn't be at 100%, but that we were definitely still at a significant number of students participating with 2,400 kids. One of the things I want to extend appreciation to Lamers. They did a great job with really making a shift that they weren't necessarily planning on, but we worked with them on to help support some families, particularly as families' specific needs changed with regards to transportation. So what our previous communications were to parents is that you needed to sign up for transportation at your point in May or April or May when you signed up for your summer school courses, and that if you needed transportation after that, there wasn't going to be an availability to reopen that up. And it's just really because of the complexity of how that impacts everybody when you kind of redo routes. But what we found was we had 140 families or kids impacted by just changes, I think, in family dynamics as far as people going back to work, other transportation needs that were needed. So we worked with Lamers to accomplish that. So on July 6th, they actually accommodated 140 kids. So that was a piece that wasn't part of our initial plan, but an accommodation we made, and they were a big part of that. So appreciate their efforts there. One of the pieces we've talked about, and you had a lot of public comments tonight about masks and COVID-related pieces. We've had some feedback over time as far as like our data dashboard pieces. Part of the reason we haven't done like the public data dashboard is that was really tracking things on a school-wide basis with all students in place. Some of the information that exists there just wasn't pertinent with our summer school program. But I did want to bring forward just as far as what we've seen, at least through the first session of summer school. I mean, through the first session, we did not have any positive cases of students in our programs. We did not have any kids that were hence then identified as close contacts. Chris Mand put together a one-sheet kind of summary in your packet. We had 49 kids that were kept out as a result of symptoms. Majority of these are just parents who noticed that their kids had one or more symptoms, kept them out of the program. We've had a few that we sent home. Of those, none of them have come back as COVID positive, so that's good news. Since the report went out last week, I just looked at where our community-wide numbers were for July 9th, 10th, and 11th. We had one case community-wide on July 9th, 0 on the 10th, 0 on the 11th. Obviously, we're looking at some of those weekend pieces where we see some fluctuation in kind of how testing takes place and it gets reported. Our average as of today was on 0.43 cases per day on a 7-day average. So that's really where we're at. And certainly respect the different opinions that are out there with regards to masks, but I just wanted to give a report on what we've seen through the first 3 weeks of summer.
Whether those 43 had it or not, I mean, it's good to see that they're taking the action, proactively and keeping them home. I think that really adds to it too, and being responsible that way.
I absolutely appreciate anyone who takes that action with their kids.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to raise a question, but I don't know if we don't raise it tonight, it's going to be really hard to move forward. As we prepared for this meeting, we had a number of correspondences looking for how we want the school year to play out for fall 21-22. One of the suggestions was that could we provide a volunteer classroom for families that would like their kids to be masked, and so that they don't have to contend with the unmasked situation. I can question whether it might be discriminatory, but I'm thinking if it's a voluntary option, I don't know if it's viable logistically, but is it something we could look into from a survey perspective? How many parents would be interested, and do we have the capacities to provide such a thing?
Right. And we've had some conversations, Mark, with regards to that, because we've seen some of the same feedback from some parents. It's really a matter of, it's a give and take scenario. I mean, because class lists are put together with a lot of variables in mind. It's not just a matter of kind of randomly choosing children. It's a matter of looking at needs of kids with IEPs, kids with advanced learning needs, trying to look at some of the other, just dynamics of kind of organizing children within a school setting. So this would just places masks as the priority for how then you would set up your classroom settings. What that does is that there's not an ability to guarantee that if you, let's just use the discussion of if you chose a masked classroom, that if you were in band, orchestra, some of our special learning programs, either advanced or special ed or other pieces, speech and language, sometimes those are in small groups as well, that I can guarantee you that I can provide all of those where everybody is always masked or unmasked, or however that would be played out. The only way a survey like that we think would work was you'd have to figure out who would want to be in an all-masked classroom, who would want to be in an optional, but there'd have to be a third category of you'd be comfortable in either one, because you'd have to be able to balance off your class sizes, because I don't want to have a class of 10 and then a class of 30.
Right.
So, and I don't think we also are in a position where we want to be adding staff in order to do that. So
No.
it's a piece that, can it be done? Yes, but there's give and take to every decision that you have. So I guess if that's something that is of interest to the board, I guess I would ask for that feedback tonight, but just knowing that it's not as simple as creating both of those and then every program and every piece is equal, because I can't guarantee that.
I'm not sure if you can't guarantee that you go forward with that plan, because then you're defeating the purpose of everybody wearing a mask, right, in that class. You know, because you're gonna have some kids that come in there without masks.
Or it would be
No.
more likely a
No.
pull out. It'd be more of like if you had to go, easiest example is go to the intermediate school and you have band and orchestra. So some of those things, you're gonna have kids pulled from both. In order to make the scheduling work, you can't just say, well, I'm speaking just very freely here, the trumpets with masks versus a trumpet. I mean, I don't know how those are just some examples of it, but it falls into special ed, it falls into some of our advanced learning pieces. It also looks at you make your class lists without really we try to balance off male, female, we try to balance off just kind of interactions with kids. It just makes some of those things more challenging. Doesn't mean, Mark, it's not possible. We just have to know going in that it's not 100% that everything is absolutely the same. There's also a piece you would have to, if you chose a masked-only classroom, there would have to be a point where you decide when does that turn to kind of the mask optional. So is that a point in time, you pick a date post-vaccine, which is kind of the concept behind it, and then that's where it falls. But it would be one everybody has to comply with it until you get to those dates. So there's definitely, I guess if that's something that you'd like us to look into, I guess I'd seek the board's input on it.
I was just going to comment, some of the issues you're probably bringing up with the band or whatever, they don't really come into play. I mean, I think all of the concerns were at the K through, they're at that young level.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things where it's probably just,
5th and 6th grade is where orchestra and band come in. So that would be, so our 6th grade on down are the 12 and under 12s. Now, is that a short-lived piece that you can, there's definitely pieces you can, you just have to know that there's drawbacks to it. Doesn't mean it's not possible, because we certainly can explore that.
I hate making more work. I mean, I would, if it's possible to see what the numbers are, we're not gonna know we can do it unless we see what those numbers are.
We heard from the public tonight that they have a petition of 200 people. In my mind, that indicates we have the students that could fill up those classrooms. And if we have that, the people who, they could go either way, if you make sure that you identify on a survey, I want to, be definite mask optional, I want to definitely wear a mask, and then you give people a choice. I could go either way to help fill classrooms. I would like to see that option explored. I think we owe it to some of the people who have been reaching out to us. I mean, there are two very, very strong voices out there, and there's a large number in each group.
So does that then change where the math classes have to eat lunch in their classroom like we did before?
I
Because,
think those are things we have to
And
work
then-
through with administrators.
yeah,
There's things you'd have to look at logistically. I mean, none of these are not insurmountable. There's just, it's a matter of give and take. And that's what you got to figure out if we're okay with that piece. You would have to survey for all three. You've got to know who's masked, who's not masked, kind of those being hard pieces. But I'm going to need people in that middle group who can go either way in order to balance those pieces out. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Things like the lunch, definitely pieces. Things like, I bring up things like the music classes at the intermediate school, because that's the easiest one to comprehend.
yeah,
I don't know the
I
logistics.
do worry about segregating
Right.
kids at that age. Because it will, and it has, caused conflict.
Yeah.
But,
I think, given the numbers that we've got in the community, we're going to revisit this after the medical advisory committee.
Yeah, but those.
And, quite frankly, the board made a decision. And, somehow we've got to keep our decisions. We can't be changing on a monthly basis.
You just wanted to change DEI.
That's not on a monthly basis.
It's within the year and a half you gave.
I think that changed on its own.
I don't think this is totally changing the decision. It's making masks optional, but grouping them by their choice to help the spread within the choice. It's still going to be optional. It's just there are a group that really would prefer that for their, the safety of their kids, and I have to respect that.
And if we're going to say, okay, as a parent, you should be able to say, my kid will not wear a mask, why can't we provide the same, explore the possibility?
Explore the
Is it
possibility.
logistically, economically possible to provide the same choice then to a parent who wants their kid's mask? I want my kid's mask, but not with unmasked kids. To me, again, it's an option.
And at this point in the pandemic, with the unknown of the Delta variant and everything else, we know the cases are going up. We see it. And I respect scheduling kids for their academic needs, but what about scheduling them for their health needs? Isn't that also a valid way to look at grouping?
So when you look at it then, or, when you get all these kids have masks, these kids don't have masks, how do you do class change? Or they don't?
They don't.
This is all elementary.
This
so
is
there's,
all
there's,
elementary.
There's not, you have to look
How
at
do you enter the building?
With your mask on.
But you're gonna interact with
Yeah,
people
but
that
you're
don't.
there
Very
for
short
a
distance.
short period
Very
of
short,
time.
spatially distanced.
There would have to be decisions that parents make about busing. Because you're going to get both different pieces on the bus. You're going to get things as people come to school. It can't be a perfectly
No,
aligned.
it won't be a perfect world,
But
but
it's-
it isn't now. You go to the grocery store and you choose.
No, they won't be.
No,
That's
no.
what we said, that
That would
be
have
in
to be,
place.
to me, that would have to be a piece you just have to understand that's, you're going to have to make a choice.
If the parent
You
decides
can't-
to go
I can't
far
run
enough,
two- I
they
can't
can
run two bus
transport the kid to the school,
That's right, that's what they did.
and they at least have control over that, but they're asking for more inside the district. I think running a survey is a good idea with the, you just gotta let them know, if the numbers can't sustain a class, we may not be able to offer this option.
Right,
But we're exploring it. Why is that a negative?
yeah.
I think it's good to explore, and we've got another month before the medical group, and a lot of these outbreaks too, are states that,
We did harder things in shorter time last year.
We did.
so, we're doing a good job so far, doesn't mean it can't change in a week. But I think if we look at it, we're doing our due diligence for the community, and then we have to make up our mind in August.
Do you need a motion, Randy, or is this
Just exploratory.
you're fine?
I think I'm fine. I guess what I'm hearing from the board, unless I see something different, is to do the exploratory survey, see where it is. We'll take a look at it administratively, and it's going to be a piece we're going to have to bring back to you then.
Yeah, and then we'll have the medical by that time, and
I
we'll
think
be looking.
community just has to realize that there's logistical things that we've got to work out in order to do that, and that'll be part of the piece, but yeah, we can do that. Okay.
Did you have more questions?
Nope, that was all I had. I mean, I think we covered all of that, and Mark, I think you brought up part of just some of the feedback we've received that's related to some of those things as we plan forward. So we can do that survey and see where it falls.
Sounds good.
So the last item is the request for 2 additional special ad paras.
Yeah, this is just a request that, first of all, my pleasure to introduce Tiffany Locken. She's you can come up, Tiffany, come on up. And Tiffany is our new director of special education. So we've seen Kurt for many years, and now Tiffany's here, so welcome, Tiffany. So, yeah, so,
Welcome.
yes.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm excited to be here and have to thank Kurt publicly. He took so much time this spring transitioning with me. We met like weekly after I was hired just to get the lay of the land and understand the population and the needs, and so that I can hit the ground running when I started in July. So I'm really thankful for Kurt's time and effort. So appreciate that. And this was a recommendation that he suggested before he left, and then we talked. And as new students continue to roll in, which is always a challenge in Waunakee because trying to plan for that is difficult. And so we've just had some students with some pretty high needs from neighboring districts that have enrolled, and we want to make sure that we just have the staff to cover the services that are already written into their IEPs.
I make the motion to approve.
Second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much. I look forward to working with all of you.
The first of many requests.
There might be more.
And we'll always well. Announcements and correspondence?
I have a few different announcements and correspondence tonight. First of all, in your packet, you will find just recognition through the Wisconsin RTI Center and then DPI of recognition of Prairie Elementary, Heritage Elementary, and the middle school, just with regards to some of their work that they've done in training that they've had around response to intervention around behavior. So I think that's some pieces that we've seen in the past with some of our schools that have hit some of their levels of implementation of different programs, and this is just recognition of those 3 schools. The second piece, the last month we had a celebration of Steve with his WASBL award. And Steve, there was a piece, I don't know if you realize this, that obviously there was a scholarship recipient that you were able to grant. So we had correspondence about part of that award allowed you to designate, $1,500 for a student, and this is just the announcement of that award.
Nice.
So thank you for 1, winning that award, and 2, being able to delegate it towards students. That's very cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yep. The third piece is just really an update, and later on in the agenda when we're setting meetings, I would like to set a goals committee meeting. In May, we talked about some of the work around like the Native American imagery, and we were going to funnel that through the goals committee. And part of that was also wanting to be reaching out to some of our Indigenous staff members. So I've had an opportunity to meet with Tim Decora, Josh Cash. I was also given the opportunity today, really on relatively short notice, I was able to meet with President Marlon White Eagle. He's the president of the Ho-Chunk Nation. He was actually down here meeting with Tim, and Tim gave me a call, and I was able to go over and meet with President White Eagle and also a member of his cabinet, Michael Salloway. Had a great conversation with them about their involvement and wanting to work on things with us from a curriculum standpoint to part of our branding process, and also some feedback on things like how we could work with our students as far as any imagery within our school. President White Eagle and I exchanged cards. We'll talk again after our meeting tonight. And I'd like to set a goals committee of where they're looking at having the director of their historic preservation work who I believe we've had some interaction with at different points through our other pieces through the village, to be part of our goals committee, which was part of, I think, what our charge from the board was. So that's just it was a good meeting today. I was really pleased to have a chance to meet with them, and I think having some of their input at our committee along with Josh and Tim would be very helpful. So that's it. End of my announcements.
Thank you. And we are down to consent agendas. You can take them all at once or pull anything out you might like.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
I'd like to just ask one question, Randy. I was on the family student handbook. There had been a classroom code of conduct that stated reasons why a student might be removed from class, and that was pulled out. Was that just because it was seen as too limiting, or?
I think they were just trying to clarify some of their language, and I'm not sure if it was a matter of it being I'm not sure. They were tying some of the things back to their policies, and I'm not sure exactly why they truncated it down the way they did. Amy, do you have any insight into the handbook as far as why? I know there were some items that were just really reduced down to for more simple language.
Yeah, the handbook was really long, and we felt like it was just more space efficient to reference some of those policies rather than copy and paste them. That one especially, some of them did feel a little secondary, and we were hoping to maybe revisit them, but for the time being, we just said, here's the policy on it. So it was mainly for length.
Any other questions? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we have board business. Oh, yes. So the report on the Wisconsin Public Education Network that David had talked about last month, and you're gonna give us a little report.
So the Wisconsin Public Education Network is basically an advocacy group that works on the state budget and funding and items like that for school districts. The main difference between them and WASB is that they are a 503c, so they can advocate. They don't have to pretend to be neutral. There's currently 44 different school districts that belong to it, including all the major school districts, which is Green Bay, Eau Claire, La Crosse, Milwaukee, Madison. In our area, other school districts that belong to it are Middleton, Sun Prairie, New Glarus, Monona Grove, all belong to it. And it's basically an easier way for you to do your political work, because they help you set up local meetings. They give you issue papers that are more advocacy based rather than considered to be neutral. So their main issue is about 2/3 funding, and probably one of their main areas of emphasis is about the school funding formula. As you heard, Joan went to the event that they put on, and they are the group that pretty much organizes those types of events around Wisconsin. They have local chapters everywhere. Dane County has a group that represents not just school districts, but this is more about a grassroots effort. So individual people, businesses, and other nonprofit type groups belong to this organization. They have a summer retreat every year where they go over kind of the state of how school funding is and how to try to advocate to make it better.
Is there a membership fee?
For the districts, yes, there is a fee. I don't know what the amount is. But basically, we talk every single time that we don't have a political structure for helping us advocate with our legislature in the state. This is a group that helps you do that. I'd be able to talk with Heather, who's the head of the organization. She lives right in Sun Prairie. We could have her come and talk about that if you'd like, or I could just bring you back what their fees are. That's easier, whatever you'd like to do.
I would be interested in getting involved. I
Me
think
too.
it, you know, from the rally on Monday at the Capitol, I think Heather spoke, and it's well organized. You know, the president of Sun Prairie has reached out to me a couple times about joining, so I would certainly be interested in looking at the information.
Why would we want to enter into a politically divisive sort of thing?
I don't think it's politically divisive. I think they help us advocate.
With
It's
the
more,
legislature.
right, it's more of, it's more of education and information that helps you advocate for the, you know, when I went down for the joint funding committee, I appreciated having the data that they were sharing. I just think it makes you more aware of the whole funding formula, and when they say money is being added to the budget, but it's not being added under the revenue cap, what that all means. I mean, I just think it's a good educational formula.
Then how does it define this so political, like they don't have to pretend to be neutral on stuff?
So like, for example, if we have a referendum, the school district cannot advocate for the referendum. The school district officially is neutral and only provides you data saying, this is what is being proposed, this is how much it would cost, this is how much it affects property taxes. But as school board members, we can individually on our own time go out and encourage people to vote for it and say why we think they should support it and why they should vote for it. The school district can't do that. WASB can't do that. They can't say, please talk to the governor and ask him to veto this thing because it's going to affect the school budget by $50 million. They can't do that. But this group can because it's registered as a 503C. When we say political, sometimes it's not about being Democrat, liberal, conservative, Republican. It's about being able to say vote yes or no, because that falls as a political activity under the state elections board. So, like I said, Randy, as school administrator, cannot say vote for the referendum because it would help the school. But you could. And that's the difference between advocating versus just providing information. This group can say, vote for the budget in a certain way.
I appreciate your thoughts, Dave, and you know, from my own personal involvement, trying to advocate on behalf of our district. One, do want to make a correction. WASB does advocate on behalf of schools with the state budget and recommending votes or not voting. I'm not sure, I don't think they get involved at the local level in terms of local decision making, but on the state level they do. But as someone who's tried to put together the story and the impact on Waunakee, having another resource available to get the data would be, and also to make access to their channels would be very beneficial to us to advocate to the legislature or the governor things that are valuable to us. And so I'd like to hear more about it.
Yeah, I would like.
Well, I'll ask Heather if she can, or I think they have 6 staff people. If one of them could attend our next meeting during this section and just say what it is they provide and what it means to be a member.
Yeah, perfect.
During this section of the,
Should we do it during board development?
yeah.
Yeah, that would be.
What if we do it, because then we could do it right at the beginning of the meeting. We could schedule them
Yeah, I don't like bringing in guests and have them sit
at
2
10
hours,
o'clock.
3 hours.
You know, maybe the board development part, we could, you know, aim for like a 6:30 format.
So at the next regular meeting, and we'd be talking with them sometime like around 6 or 5:30.
We could put it first and closed at 6:30,
Sure.
if you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Well, how much time do you think she would like to give us?
Half hour would be more than enough, and
So
that's if
start
we
at
ask a
6
bunch
for
of
the board
questions.
development?
Yeah, start at 6 with board development, have her first, and then we'll do,
We'll just start with board development, that's how we'll post it, and then immediately following board development, we'll go into closed session.
Sounds good.
the other thing that's not on the agenda, and I don't know if I can bring it up, based on all the things we heard from Dan Mallon, is the survey information that we all kind of participated with reading through. I knew tonight with Dan Mallon, we didn't really have any time to bring that back, but I do want to bring that back. Can we maybe make it just an agenda item next month? And in that agenda item, you know, after I read through mine, it was very hard to summarize it. It was just like, you know, people loved what you did, people hated what you did, but maybe we could all pick out like 2 to 5 items in our group that might be noteworthy to bring back as a board discussion. And I had all elementary except my last 6, and I saw a definite change when you got to the upper grade, so I don't know the high school.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really difficult because it was so wide open
It
and
was.
everything was all over the place. So I was trying to find a way to collate it and get some kind of, break it into more meaningful things.
I know it, and I had the same kind of issue, and then I read Mark's and I thought, well, that's almost like reading the survey, sorry, Mark.
It's all right. So, well, I gave 3 different versions. I guess, you know, I agree with the, looking at the negative, looking at the positive, I think it's a wash.
Yeah.
But what I would like to see us bring in are, if that section where talked about things they'd like us to consider doing going forward, if there's something that stands out in that way, you know, give your top 4 or 5 suggestions for what would you like us to do next year that you've learned, or, you know, that you want us to be mindful of as we go into the next school year. That might be the things that are most valuable.
And I think that dovetails in, one of the things we're doing, we did as an administrative team at our retreat, we'll follow up with it tomorrow at our cabinet meeting, and I know our principals are doing with their staff, is things like, what did you learn over the last 2 years? And it's kind of like what would you keep, what do you want to get rid of, and what do you want to, maybe, what have you learned that you want to explore for the future? So we kind of broke it into those 3 categories.
Yeah.
And so that's a piece that it may fit within some of this dialogue, or at least this may parcel into that discussion as we move forward.
But can we just do it as an agenda item?
Yep, we'll just do it
Because
that
I
way.
wanna bring that survey information back. So if that's acceptable to everybody, to pick out, you know, a handful of items out of the, what do we want to do as we move forward, or anything else that jumped out for next time. And maybe you could send them to Rebecca in advance. Got it? Okay. All right, so we are down to.
Oh, one thing.
Legislative update.
More on board business. There is a DEI community discussion coming up July 21st on Wednesday at the Waunakee Public Library. It's open invitation, but you do have to go on an Eventbrite site to sign up, just because they want to know a head count so they don't overcapacity the room. And it's being done at 6 p.m. and I can forward it to Rebecca so she can.
You just want to forward it to Rebecca?
You already have it?
We already have it, but if you have, that might be easier since Annie's out right now. So if you want to just forward it to Rebecca, we
Okay.
can forward it out to the board. I know a number of us administratively are planning to attend.
I think we should notice it as possible quorum.
Yeah.
Just in
Sounds
case.
like it.
I've already signed up. There is another one coming up in August that is being run by a statewide organization, talking about CRT and its harm on your local community. And it's designing to have parents advocate at the school board to end these type of initiatives. I've signed up for that one because I think you should listen to everybody. But that's going to be at the Windsor Golf Club, so barely out of our school district. I think, but it's definitely targeting the Waunakee area also, because it's been going
Do you
around.
have the
What's the
date on
date for that?
That one I don't have exactly, I signed up for it, but I can't find my email saying.
Well, could you send the link to?
But I'll get both of those together and send them to you.
Rebecca?
We may need to notice that one too. I don't know
Yeah,
if
that's
your
fine.
administrative team is even thinking of going near it. That one is definitely gonna be a lot more political. It's being run by someone who's expected to run for governor. But they're running it with Will, which you've probably heard of, and some other national organizations.
Anything else?
The legislative update is really just Steve talking about the budget.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's our legislative update.
He's been waiting so patiently.
I
Welcome
mentioned-
back.
Thank you. I mentioned earlier during the budget committee reports that we had originally intended this evening, there's typically at the July board meeting a budget hearing where members of the public have an opportunity to ask any questions or share any comments or feedback on the budget that's being recommended for approval. Then typically the third draft of the budget is recommended for approval. Now what that does is it just allows administration to continue moving forward with budget planning. We still have the presentation of the budget that occurs at the annual meeting, and of course the school board does not vote on the final budget until we get to the near end of October. But typically it's just a step in our process. As well as the HR committee requested additional time to look at the teacher supplemental compensation pay to go along with the revised draft of the budget. So we're asking for those items to move forward for a special board meeting, if possible, next week or early the week thereafter, somewhere in that time frame. Next week would be preferable if possible. What we would be doing at that meeting is sharing information with the school board on all of the changes that are taking place with federal and state funds regarding the budget, but in addition to the state budget, regarding updated information on federal funds that we have available to share. And so we'd be looking to just have a special school board meeting really focused in on those topics alone and sharing that information with you. It would be basically it'd be avoiding committee meetings and coming straight to all 7 board members and bringing that information forward, if possible, next week.
We initially thought about the 19th. That's possible.
Is it Monday?
Yeah.
That's the only day that I can make.
Can we Zoom it? I'll be gone.
The only day you can or can't.
Can.
You could, sure, Judy.
We can Zoom?
Yeah, we could also add a Zoom link to it, sure, absolutely. We know how to do that, we're learning how to do that, so.
No, not in Cape Hatteras.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Zoom.
Monday works for me.
Works for me.
Work all right? Yeah, obviously, what our agenda items are gonna be is solely those things we pulled really from the budget committee. Steve giving an update on some of the work that we're doing this week, and particularly his team are focusing on is trying to kind of capture what all these dollars are and get as much information as possible so we can bring that forward to you as a package.
So what time, and we need a motion?
What about 6 o'clock on the 19th?
6 o'clock on the 19th?
If that gets everybody, does that work for everyone? We could do it 5 if you wanted to, but 6 better? All right.
Motion to have a special meeting on July 19th at 6 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, I do have a few other pieces for other meetings this month. I would like to schedule, let me start off with the curriculum committee. So curriculum committee is Mark, Ted, and Judy. Initially what I'd like it for, Chris, why don't you come forward for a second? If you recall back a few months, and it's been quite a few months, we had a request come before the board for us to go to an RFP for mental health services from a third-party provider. We have put out that RFP. We did get 2 responses, which we feel are viable and met what we were looking for. And what we would like to do is do interviews of those 2 entities. And I think it would be probably informative and also beneficial to have, since this would be some sort of a partnership, that would be within our school, that we should have a board representation in part of that process. So when I talked to Joan, we thought the curriculum committee may be a good place to have that sit, be part of that process, and then can represent that to the. So I'm looking at a couple different dates here, kind of the week of July 20th, the 22nd, the 26th, or the 27th. Those are kind of in those 2-week time frames. They could do it during the day if you'd prefer to do that. We did ask that question. So if it's something that we would want to, I'm guessing that this would be probably like let's just say like a 3-hour meeting, because I probably want to give them each.
They'll probably present for about 20 and maybe answer.
Maybe
ask
not
questions
three, yeah,
and go back and
a
forth.
couple hours, 2.5 hours, right? We'd probably give them a point where they could present to us. We would have an opportunity then to ask them questions, so we'll probably get 45 minutes with them, and then have the next group come in. So probably 2 hours of the interview plus any processing that the board would want to do. So if there's a date that works, again, the 20th, the 22nd, the 26th, or 27th.
I can only do 26, 27.
All right, so if we wanted to look at 26th or 27th.
And I can't do those.
Okay.
Those don't work for you, Ted?
When can you do it, Mark?
I can do the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, or the 27th, or the 28th.
Well, we could, you also gave me another week of, this doesn't make the board meeting for
Right,
August.
push
so
us
that
back
would-
a little bit, but in August.
Right, what we could do is we could do it the week of like August. We could do it in August. It would then just have to come to the board in September. It wouldn't be in place at the beginning of the school year. I mean, that's certainly an option.
Do you need all 3 of us?
And the other, I wouldn't mind sitting in for you, Ted, if you don't mind.
Probably
It's fine.
whichever side we want to go on. I don't.
I mean, if you would like it in August, I could do those July dates.
August 2nd through the 5th, I'm unavailable.
And I think we would probably look at, it'd probably be after the August board meeting. I mean, when we look at kind of availability of when we have the staff to do it, it'd be probably that week of our board meeting in August is on the 9th.
Right.
So it would probably be that week, later on that week of the 9th, or some other time during August. Then we just have to bring it forward at the September board meeting, which is fine as well. So if we want to do it in August, that way we could keep the committee intact.
I'm available in August.
So
Same.
how about like, let's do it early, like, how about like the 11th of August? That's a Wednesday.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Chris?
I gave you my dates. I
You
don't have
gave me
them
your
in
dates
front
and
of
you
me.
said the
If
week.
that's on there, then it
It
works.
is,
yes.
it is.
And they
Yeah.
were flexible in time, so.
Yep, so you could pick it, so if we chose to do the 11th, is there a time that
Are you talking daytime?
would you rather do it, does it work for you to do it during the day? That is an
Yes.
option for us here.
And would you prefer
I'm
first
good
thing in
with
the morning?
Does that work if we did like,
Or after lunch? Yeah, first thing in the morning, maybe?
probably do it right away in the morning, that works, so if we could do something at like,
4:30.
there you go, absolutely. How about we did,
Little early in the
what if we
morning,
started at
just a
like,
little.
like an 8:30? Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack. You're always helpful.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
The other one I'd like to look at is our goals committee. And goals is Joan, Brian, and Jack. I'd like to schedule, I'm going to propose right now August 2nd, which is a Monday. I'm just going to propose that as a date for the goals committee. I could look at either the 2nd, probably look at the 2nd and the 4th. And I'd just like to see if second is better for you. This is where I would like to kind of start our work around some of the Native American pieces, the branding pieces that have been delegated to that committee. So,
August 2nd is a Monday?
yes.
I can do it.
Okay.
I'll do it.
What time?
What would be a,
First thing in the morning?
yeah, there you go.
Morning?
Joan, Brian, and Jack. It'd be probably, the piece I'm gonna have to work with that on is just trying to make sure I can get, because there are some folks on the
Evening,
outside I'd like to
evening
invite
is fine.
in to that committee, so I'm gonna have to work with that.
Evening, he said
Evening.
evening.
So could we do like a 5:30 or 6 o'clock?
Yeah. that would work.
Okay.
5:30.
Yeah, let's try 5:30. That is one that if I can't get some of the people that I need there, I may have to kind of revisit that, but we'll be in contact. All right. Other committees, Steve?
Curriculum.
You need another curriculum meeting. You need anything, or you'll be
We need a-
You'd like another?
We'll need
curriculum?
one before the August 9th meeting.
All right, so you need a curriculum meeting before August 9th to do
Yes.
the other curriculum stuff, not
Yes.
the other piece.
We need 2 curriculum meetings?
Yeah, we're making you busy.
Well, had that one
I'm just
come
kidding.
before, we might have been able to, depending on people's endurance, tack a little bit of
Endurance.
business on.
No
We do
problem.
6-hour meetings here. too.
What am I thinking? Yeah, so anyways, we will probably need about an hour-length meeting sometime before the August 9th meeting and after July 20th.
July.
And I realize schedules are a little in flux.
Do you have any date you have in mind to just throw it as an option here?
So I had been thinking the week of July 26th or early in the week of the 2nd, but I heard some gaps.
How about Ted, the 28th? Gone then?
Yeah, I'm gone that
29th?
whole week.
You're gone the whole week.
How does August 2nd? I think that's a
I'm
month.
going, but if someone sits with me, I'm fine with that.
I can sit in.
Okay.
August 2nd?
August 2nd to be any time of day.
Morning?
4? Yeah, so the
Pat,
morning,
you're not helping.
we
I
don't
have
have
a-
central office or anything, we could go in the morning.
Yeah, I have a 5:30 on August 2nd already, so.
9 o'clock?
5:30 in the morning?
Whoa, Judy, stay with us.
I'm gonna sit with
Jack missed
Yeah,
that.
he's
Jack
going-
should have been here for that.
So what time you?
How about 9 o'clock
9
on August 2nd?
a.m.
Does that work for you, Ted?
Sure.
Yeah, that works.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
all right. So
Are
just
you
to-
retired, Tim? Can you come anytime?
I'm pretty flexible.
Oh,
Not
good.
retired though.
Good.
All right. So what we have a special meeting on the 19th. We then have goals committee on August 2nd at 5:30, curriculum at 9 a.m. And then we have August 11th, the curriculum at 8:30. Is that what we got?
So far.
And you don't need anything else, Steve? Brian doesn't need HR? We're good? I think that's what we got. We're
Okay.
good.
We are done. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Who's
Second.
second?
Oh, you can have it.
Jeremy, you were back.
Second. All in favor?
Waiting for an hour.